Okay, we're at the witching hour, 5 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and we'll get this rolling. The first thing we do is we ask the leadership team members to please identify themselves in terms of whatever responsibility they have as a leadership role. And then we'll go on and recognize the district commissioners and committee members who are also present. So Chief Lilly, let's start over there and we'll go this way.
How's it going? I'm Michael Lilienthal. I'm a Deputy Chief with the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, currently assigned to the Sheriff's OES office, and I chair the Public Safety Committee.
Hi, my name is Sophia Yamato. I'm a senior at Oak Ridge High School. I am on the El Dorado County Youth Commission and El Dorado County Behavioral Health Commission.
I'm Cindy Munt. I'm Supervisor Heidal's assistant, and I do the information and outreach for the Community Council.
John Heidel, District 1 Supervisor.
Green means go. John Davey, I'm the chair of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee, and we're a group of resident volunteers that analyze and provide feedback on proposed development in El Dorado Hills.
Good evening. My name is Dave Spar. I'm new to the committee. It's a pleasure to be here. I serve in a capacity of economic development for all of El Dorado County, but live here in El Dorado Hills.
Very good. Let's go with the first row and we'll move back. Richard, please identify your role in helping the county.
Dick Ross, citizen, Civil Service Commission, and a former member of the panel before you had this meeting.
Thank you for that history. All right.
I'm Webster, the Assistant Registrar of Voters, and oversee the elections in El Dorado.
Okay, go.
Bill O'Neill, Registrar of Voters, also El Dorado County.
They're our guest speakers, so more to come. Don't leave now. So Raylene, back over to you. Very good. Tita?
Tita Bladen, also on the El Dorado County Commission on Aging. And actually, Raylene and I are also volunteers on the California Senior Legislature. Raylene is your senior senator, and I'm senior senator for El Dorado.
Very good. And I think that's everybody in the room who's on one of our committees or commissions who's a volunteer, I'll note. And I don't see any hands raised at this point. So we'll move on to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Are there any proposed changes by any member of the leadership team? Seeing none, the agenda shall stand as published. Item 3, public comment. This is the portion of the meeting we would invite anyone from the public who would like to come forward. And I think the microphone on the over here is working. We would ask you to come forward, but for any item not on the agenda. So if you have a concern, if you have a complaint, if you have an issue that you've seen, would just like to ask a general question, now would be the time to come forward with that questioning. And we'll try to give you an answer as expediently as possible, and then we'll go from there. So anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time? Not seeing anyone in the boardroom and not seeing anyone online. So with that, we'll move right into our guest speaker. So again, it's my privilege to introduce our 2 members from our Registrar of Voters office, i.e. the elections office. And they're very excited because we have an upcoming election. We're just, what, 30 days, 29 days? Pretty close, right? And so what they're going to do is share with us their preparation for the coming election, and then also talk a little bit about the transition that will be occurring since Bill O'Neill has decided that he's going to retire and move off to other ventures. And Linda will be taking his position as appointed by the board, subject to Bill's leaving. So with that, please give us a little of your bio, the reason why you came to El Dorado County to be our Registrar of Voters, and then we can go from there.
Well, I might be staying. It all depends on what happens with Florida.
Oh, if you haven't heard, they're evacuating the whole state.
I know. And that's where my house is.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So I'm Bill O'Neill, the Registrar of Voters. I've been in El Dorado County most of my life. Started in the mid-'80s as I was really involved with El Dorado Jeep herders and up in Sierra Nevadas. And then I got involved in technology, and that was kind of my career path, and then got into elections about 20 years ago. Through that, I worked with the elections department here in El Dorado County starting in about 2004. And then when Bill Schultz decided he was going to retire, I thought it would be just a great opportunity to come serve my own community and actually help the voters of El Dorado County. So that's what brought me here. It was just a great way for me to cap off my career. So today is E-29. We do everything on an E- calendar, election day minus number of days. E-29 is when we mail out ballots. So all the ballots got mailed today. When we got to the office, we actually had people waiting outside because they could start voting today. So there were several people, a lot of people that came in and voted in person today, which is excellent. That's pretty exciting. This election has, for us election nerds, the more energy an election has, the more fun we have. So this one is going to be about the most fun election I think we've ever had. It's fun to sit back and just kind of watch the whole process and watch what's going on around the country, but specifically in our county. We are generally the last ones to know election results, primarily because we're so busy on election night. We don't get a chance to follow what's happening across the state or nationally. It's usually the next day we sit down and go, okay, you know, what happened on those propositions in the state, or, you know, what happened on the national contest. So we generally are the last to know, funny enough. No results can be released until after 8 p.m. on election night. We don't even have any idea. We'll start tabulating ballots probably, depending on how many ballots we get back. We'll start tabulating ballots 2 weeks, possibly prior to the election day. But nothing can be looked at, nothing can be tallied or reviewed. So we have no idea until we release that first report on election night, which is usually around 8:10, 8:15. One of the things, we've moved into a new building. The Board of Supervisors purchased a building for us and Child Support Services, which has been just a fantastic change for us. It's a really efficient, well-designed space that makes us much better at processing all of the election materials. And it gives the public more transparency than we've ever been able to give them before. We are actually, and I think the only county, possibly in the state or the country, that will allow people into the tabulation room. You can physically stand in the tabulation room while we're tabulating ballots. That's there's a big struggle between security and transparency. We have to be secure, but we also have to be wide open and transparent. Doing both of those things can be a challenge. So the way we've set up our new office meets both of those. It's the most transparent we've ever been. We've always been a super transparent office, but it just gives us so much more. In addition to that, we live stream the entire election process. Those cameras will go up probably tomorrow or the next day as we start to see ballots coming back. So you'll be able to watch everything from the ballots being returned, signature checking, the ballots being opened, reviewed and tabulated, and you don't even have to leave your office or your home if you want to just watch it online. If you come in, there's a lot of windows that you can watch the process through. We have posters on the wall that describes the process that's going on through those windows. And like I said, the tabulation room, you can actually go inside the tabulation room. There's just a little stanchions that you have to stand behind, but you're able to watch them tabulate ballots when we're tabulating. So it's pretty exciting. This is going to be, we used this building for the first time in March, and it went very well. So this is going to be the next big step. In November 2020, we had 118,333 ballots returned. 94% of those were by mail, 6% voted in person. Our vote centers will be opening in a couple of weeks. So we have a 10-day vote center and we have a 4-day vote center. So the 10-day vote centers will open on October 26th. And then the 4-day vote centers will open the Saturday prior to Election Day. So you can vote in person at any vote center throughout the county. You don't have to go to a specific one. So if you're up in Tahoe on vacation and you want to top it off by voting, there you go. Just go into a vote center in Tahoe and go vote. I am, as Supervisor Heidel mentioned, I'm retiring at the end of this year. My official last day is January 17th, which I'm excited about. If there's a state of Florida left, If not, I don't know where I'll end up. My wife has a lot of family there, which is what's drawing us there. Her mom's getting elderly, and so she wants to be there to take care of her. Linda Webster, the assistant registrar, will come up and introduce herself. I'm really excited. She's going to be taking the registrar position. As Supervisor Heidel mentioned, the board appointed her. So January 18th will be her first official day as the registrar of voters. She's been with the department for a long time and has done just an incredible job. She's been really heavily focused on operational stuff. And so part of the transition is she's getting more into the strategic planning aspect and the public relations and a big broader view and a little bit less of the day-to-day activities. So I will let Linda come up and tell you all about her. She loves talking about herself. So.
Excuse me, where's your office? Oh, we are on Ponderosa Road, 3883 Ponderosa Road. And it's right off Highway 50 Ponderosa.
So, hello, everybody. I think Bill did a really good job at explaining our process in the office. So I'll just talk a little bit about myself, and then if there's any questions, we can answer them. I have been with the county since 1989, and I went to work in the elections department in 2005 when we brought in our previous ballot tabulation system. And I did all the technology on that, setting it up, testing and everything for elections, training people on how to use them. But with my changeover into the elections department, it was so the whole process intrigued me that I took the time to learn everything from voter registration to district boundaries to redistricting to candidate filing and ballot layout and tabulation, and it's been a really interesting field to be in. And providing that opportunity to voters to cast a ballot is just, it feels really good. If any of you have ever worked for us, I'm sure that you understand that feeling when you're being able to check people in to register to vote and giving them that opportunity to cast that ballot. So it's been a nice almost 20 years in the elections department learning that whole process. And that's a little bit about me and what brought me into the elections department. Do you have any other questions on the process of the elections?
Leadership team first. Any questions? Linda.
I'll jump in. The first thing, I really just wanted to mention, I got my text and my email this morning. Ballots in the mail. So thank you. I just appreciate the amount of transparency that your department has engaged in, not just this year, but in many years, and the opportunity for people to come and watch the process. I think it's pretty valuable. And I think it connects people regardless of whatever the candidates, the races. It's very, very beneficial. So thank you.
I guess I just had one on the national news. I was hearing that some states were allowing people still to register to vote. Well, we have shut down registration at this point. Is that correct or not correct? How long can you wait before you have the deadline for registration to vote?
So that's a great question. So right now, the way it sits is at E-15 is the last day to register to vote and receive a ballot in the mail. After that date, from E-14 to election day, a person can actually walk in and become what we call a conditional voter. And they can register and they can vote right at that time. But what that does is that ballot gets isolated or attached to their voter registration. That all comes back to us. We enter the registration, ensure that voter has not cast a ballot anywhere else in the state. And once all of that has been determined, then that ballot gets counted. So right up until election day, you can register.
Good information, because there's some people I know that probably don't understand yet how important it is to vote. Maybe they're getting the word, and to know that they can still go register and vote in this cycle is important information to communicate. So we'll try to make sure that word gets out.
And with the American people or just people in society these days, it's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. People are constantly moving, being able to work telework, so you can be anywhere, you can go on vacation. So there's a lot of movement that happens with registrations, and then with us, people needing their ballots sent to an alternate address because they're going to be away from their home during that time. And just so everybody's aware, if you're away from your home or you have a forwarding address, ballots do not get forwarded. And if you're having your mail held, it will get returned to us. So when you come back, your ballot's not going to be sitting there waiting for you.
Just one final one. Can you register to vote up through E15 online, or do you have to go in person at this point?
So up until E-15, what's important about that date is you can register by paper or online, and then a ballot will be mailed to you.
Okay.
Everybody, gets a ballot mailed to them. They can make that choice to vote on that ballot or go into a vote center. What happens after starting E-14 to election day, they can register online and come in, but they're still, if that has not been processed, and they're still a conditional voter. If they have gotten processed, they're still a conditional voter, but they have more of a feel of voting in person at that time.
So they could register up till 8 p.m. on election night and vote. So it's right up until 8 p.m. election
The
night.
polls close.
You can
Oh.
register.
Okay, that's a definitive timeline.
Yeah.
That's when you
Not
shut
either
everything
one.
down, right? That's good to know. So we'll go ahead and get that information in our minutes and get that distributed. So any other questions from leadership team members? Members in the conference room here? Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I think you bring a lot of something national to make sure your vote counts. Here, track your votes. I used to do one of these old fashioned kind of go in, put my vote in, every year, every 4 years. But now if I want to mail it in, I'm a little nervous about that. So how does this whole thing work?
That's a great question. So you can sign up for ballot tracks, and it's a program through the Secretary of State's office, and it'll give you a text when it gets mailed out. It'll give you a text when we receive it back, and it'll show you also when your signature has been accepted. Because every vote by mail ballot that gets returned to our office, 100% of those signatures are checked. And they have to match your voter registration record before those ballots can be opened. But as far as, we get a lot of questions about show me where it was tabulated. That we cannot, because once we extract the ballots from the envelopes, we do it in a way that the privacy of the voter is kept private. So, and once the ballots are separated, we cannot put those back together. But that does not happen until your signature has been verified and true. If your signature does not match, or somebody forgets to sign their envelope, they'll get a postcard from us, and they'll have time to cure that. They'll have up until 2 days before we certify to cure their ballot. And that means sending your signature back in, and so that we can verify it against your voter record. And another thing, that some emergency legislation that went through was this, just for this election, we cannot certify it before December 3rd. And that was some emergency legislation that went into place just for this election. They called emergency legislation because they pushed it through quickly and got it signed. So we have a process after the election where, when we get all those vote by mail ballots back on election night, we cannot count them all on election night because they have to go through that process of signature checking, extracting, preparing to go through tabulation. So it usually takes us until the end of the week or the first part of the following week to get all the vote by mail ballots tabulated. And then there's a lot of other things that goes into the canvas. And one of them that's really, really important, and we encourage people to come down and watch, is the 1% manual tally. So what happens there is every batch, and we do them right around batches of 100 so that we can do a good audit on them when we're tabulating them, is all those batch numbers get put into a bin, and we randomly select batches. And when we randomly select those batches, a minimum of 1%, and we hand tally. So we take the report from the system for that batch, and we take that batch, and that gets hand counted. And that is to verify that the reports coming out of the tabulation system line up with what those ballots were voted. So it's really a good process. It's a little boring. Try to get people to come down and watch, and they usually don't stay too long. But it's a checks and balance to make sure that the system is accurately recording the votes on those ballots.
And you can get the tracking if you go to Secretary of State's website, sos.ca.gov. And there's a little icon that says, "Where's my ballot?" And you just click on that, you sign up, and then that will track when it's been mailed and when we receive it, et cetera.
But I do have another question for the drop-off boxes. Do those get picked up regularly during the day, or is it a particular time? Do they get picked up periodically during the day? They do.
Yeah, so the Dropbox, we have a schedule. The first several days of after we mail ballots, we don't pick them up very often because there's really not ballots being returned. The closer we get to election day, we get to the point where we're picking them up every single day. And then on election day, a lot of the drop boxes get picked up several times throughout the day. So the ballots, if you drop your ballot in the drop box, generally we'll have it within 24 hours in our office. And those are picked up by sworn election officials, people that have been working with us for decades. And then they pick them all up, all 14, 15 drop boxes, to bring back to our office.
Richard, I think you were next, and then we'll go back over here. So,
Okay, a couple of questions. First of all, who can register to vote?
Well, you have to be 18 years old, a citizen, and not on parole serving in a state facility.
How is that information verified?
That's a great question. Everything goes up to what we call a statewide database. It's called VoteCal, and it was implemented due to some federal legislation called the National Voter Registration Act. So all states have what's called a statewide database, and rather people register online, go through DMV or paper registration, when we actually key them in and input them, their information goes up to the VoteCal, the statewide system. VoteCal verifies them and sends us back what's called a VoteCal ID. So they have a mechanism in there that verifies somebody's state ID, their date of birth, the last 4 digits of their social. I know that it's been asked a lot about citizenship checks. We have asked at the state level, and there is not a process in place on VoteCal, but we're assured when somebody comes to DMV that if they are not a citizen, that they're presented with a different form where they do not have that option to register. Now, with that saying, we have seen some get through. To be all out honest about it, and these people have, the ones that we have been brought to our attention, it's because they came to us and said, "I'm not a citizen and I don't want this ballot." And of course, we cancel their voter registration. So that's the whole answer I can give.
So you rely upon a state-based mechanism for the validation process, and they control how they engage whatever other databases that they use, particularly relative to citizenship, I guess.
Well,
Yeah, and we wish, honestly, that they did more. But they do all sorts of checks to ensure that they're over 18, they're eligible, they're in the right county, they're not registered anywhere else. But the citizenship check is not, I'm not satisfied with it, to be honest with you. I think it needs to go further. There's been some legislation proposed at the federal level, and I've spoken with Congressman Kiley about this to try to add in that component of the citizenship check. So hopefully we'll get to that point. I think there's a lot of mechanisms out there right now that could help with that.
Okay. Relative to registered voters currently in El Dorado County, what is that number?
133,470 roughly.
Has that risen gradually or by the similar percentage over the year?
No, it's funny this year. So we have about 144,500 that are eligible. That means they're 18 years or older and they reside in El Dorado County. So we have kind of a low registration rate. Now in 2020, we increased quite a bit between the March primary and the general election. This election, that hasn't happened. It's stayed pretty steady. I think we've only gone up maybe 1,000 voters since March. So it's nothing like we saw in 2020 for new registrations. Is that about?
That's about
accurate?
right. Mhm.
Yeah.
You said 128?
100.
Currently we have about 133,478.
Relative to registered voters in the county, do you offhand know the number that are registered political parties and then independent?
Yeah, we've got those numbers also. We update them on our website pretty regularly. It's about, and I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, we have about 41% Republican, 31% Democrat, and about 22% independent. And then the rest is made up by some of the smaller parties.
And you said maybe since the last election, it's only increased by about 1,000?
About 1,000, I think it's about 1,000 voters, yeah.
And that registration fluctuates daily because we're getting those online registrations and everything from the state daily, and we're working those records.
I'm sorry.
And that fluctuates daily because we get those registrations or duplicate merges, information daily, and we work them daily. So we're constantly keeping up on our registration.
Relative to the registrations that do that, how are the existing registrations validated to ensure that one person's still alive? Do they still live in?
That we get between 200 and 500, 200 and 600 updates a day. So if somebody's passed away, we get notifications from about 3 or 4 different agencies. Social Security Administration, the state, health department, county clerk recorder. So we get those updates constantly. So we're always checking that. We're also always checking, like Linda said, we'll get duplicates. So they'll send it to us and say, this may be a duplicate from the state. And then we'll verify whether that's a duplicate or not, a change of address, et cetera. We also go through and clean out our voter registration. After every major election cycle, we'll go through and anybody that hasn't voted in the previous 2 elections, 2 federal elections gets inactivated, and then they can sit inactivated for another 2 election cycles. So we're constantly working the voter registration. It's probably 3 to 8 hours a day that somebody spends on the voter registration going through all of that stuff.
So if they don't vote 2 federal elections in a row, the 4-year period, right? Then in that 3rd cycle, does a ballot still go out to that address?
No, once they're inactivated, we don't send a ballot out. We also get, when we mail ballots out, and this happens every election, and we posted the statistics on our webpage, we get those any ballot that cannot be delivered to the person comes back to us. It can be they moved out of state, they moved out of county, they moved in county, or it's just flat undeliverable because ballots can't be forwarded. We take all of those, and it's generally around 2,500 to 4,000 every election. And every single one of those gets updated in our voter registration system. Anytime we send something out to somebody, we get Nixie tags. It's a yellow tag that's on the envelope or on the postcard. Anytime we get that back, we take action on that. So if they moved within the county, we send them a new ballot to their new address. If they moved out of county, they get inactivated. If it's undeliverable, they get inactivated. So there's several conditions also on the mail pieces that cause that to happen.
Let's move it around a little bit, Richard. So there was somebody back over here that had a question. And do we have a microphone back there? Okay, because we want to make sure that the Zoom participants can hear you. I should have mentioned that right up front, but.
I did
Okay, over here, he's got a question, yeah.
Hi, Ron Cassidy with Briarwood Canyon Community. I registered to vote in El Dorado County about 16 years ago. And I wanted to find out with the verification, signature verification, if I sign my name with my middle initial, or if I sign it with my whole middle name, does that get verified, or does it just get rejected if it doesn't match a signature card?
That's a good question. We get that often during an election. So there, people register with their first, middle, and last, their first and middle initial and last, maybe their first and last. It does not matter how you registered or how you sign your ballot, your envelope. We are looking for similarities throughout that signature with your signature that we have on file. So we send our signature verifiers to training once a year. And they go over all the mechanisms and how to look at signatures and the characteristics of the slant and the loops and all that kind of stuff. We're even taught how to identify people that have come down with neurological diseases and stuff like that. And so it does not matter if you do not do your whole registered name. Right.
Yeah.
Can I follow up on something
Yes,
about
sure.
this fellow right here about the death records?
Yeah.
We get those from many, like Bill said, from many different organizations and everything, but sometimes we do not get that information. Sometimes somebody dies outside of the state, that our health department doesn't necessarily get that information, so we don't get that information. So we depend on the family or the ballot getting returned, letting us know that voter is deceased so that we can take action on it.
And sometimes we just flat don't get notified at all, even if they live in county. They just, for whatever reason, we just never get a notification. It's rare, but it does happen.
I think Medicare and Social Security and those kinds of things would be, obviously there's an age thing there, right? You would have to be older, but if you die short of 65 or whatever your eligibility is, it would be more difficult to try to get that record. But there's got to be multiple federal and state approaches to do it, but they're all laborious, I'm sure, in trying to really find out what the truth is. Some people reported death, the person's still alive.
That's a true statement. We have had to revive people before in voter registration.
Right. So it happens both ways, I guess. Go ahead, Richard. Yeah. Good.
Basically, there's been some degree of controversy concerning what they call identification for voters. Given your process, how capable would it be to implement some kind of voter identification?
You'd be surprised at how many people, so it's a state level. The state has to make that a law, put it in legislation for us to be able to comply with that and ask for voter ID. You'd be surprised at how many people just hand us their ID for checking them in, because it's easier than us standing there asking their name and their address and their date of birth. So even without it being a requirement, a lot of people hand us their ID to check them in. But is it required? No. And that would take your legislatures to pass that law.
To follow up on that, are the majority of your ballots distributed by mail and received in the mail or in deposit boxes?
We have seen that fluctuate a little bit. We have seen the drop boxes rise, and then we've seen the mail rise. It's hard to tell what voters are thinking.
But in those cases, the connectivity to show ID doesn't exist.
No, but everything gets a signature check. Here's a little secret that drives me crazy. Every ballot we receive in the mail has a signature check. That's a great ID verification. People that vote in person do not have to show identification. So we are actually, mail ballots are safer than in-person ballots from that standpoint. So when you go into vote, we're a state your name state, and I think the governor may have just signed something that said we will never require ID in the state. And that's, for me, it's just concerning because I swore an oath that I'm gonna uphold the Constitution, and yet I can't verify the ID of somebody standing in front of me. I don't care what the ID is, it would be really easy to implement any ID requirement. But unfortunately, we cannot check ID. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned before, 94% of the ballots that we receive back are by mail, and 6% are in person. And we have been that, this county has been that for probably close to a decade. We had 87%
That were permanent.
permanent absentee. So we mail out to 100% of the voters. We already had like 87% that were already permanent absentee voters anyway. So that didn't change, and it hasn't changed the demographics of our county as far as voting and voting habits. But that's the little secret that nobody talks about is voting in person. There's no ID, but if you mail in your ballot, we check your signature. So it's safer to mail in a ballot than it is in person, which is the opposite of what you hear out in the world of election information.
Last question. I hate to consume all the time here. I'm sure the registrar of the voters have some statewide association because they interact. Are our general numerical conditions in this county similar to other counties, the other counties in the state, or the median numbers of the other counties in the state?
As far as what numbers?
Well, like mailed out ballots and absentee percentages, etc.
I can't speak directly to that. We're a 100% mail state now, so every county mails out ballots. But as far as return numbers,
Yeah, we have always had a really high return of vote by mail ballots since I've worked in the elections department. And I've always kind of thought potentially that was because we had a lot of rural areas and people didn't know if they were going to make it to the polling place on election day back when it was just one day. And so, it can be found, I'm not quite sure, but there is data on the Secretary of State's website with that.
I'm intrigued, speaking about your comment about the mail and check for yourself.
that's California for sure. I don't know about the rest of the country.
I want to explain that just a little bit because we do check every signature on vote by mail ballots, but when somebody presents themselves in front of us and they state their name and their address and potentially their date of birth, if there's two people at the same household with that name, we're going to give them a ballot and they're going to drop it in the ballot box. So, we can't go back later and check those signatures and then know what ballot to pull out of the ballot box. So that's, I think, probably the main reason why there is no signature check on voting in person.
And we processed it 2020, and I use that as an example because that was the highest turnout we've had, 87% in that county. We processed about almost 111,000, like 110,833 verified signatures. So we do check every single signature on every single envelope.
Very good. Last call. I'm not seeing anyone online with their hand raised. Thank you again. Great information. We're all looking forward to Election Day and the results. I'm a little disturbed that you're not going to know the finals until December 3rd, though that seems like it's an awful late, because if there are close contests, you can't start a recount until after that date. Is that what it amounts to? And some of these boards get seated in December, the end of December and the first part of January. So you could end up in a situation that the election has not been determined and they can't be seated. Is that the bottom line?
So for El Dorado County, we usually do certify somewhere just before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We go out for Thanksgiving, but we cannot, even though we have everything tabulated and just sitting there waiting, we cannot do the certification of the election until that December 3rd date.
That's the state.
I understand it's a state requirement, but it just,
I
I don't get it.
I agree.
You do not want to sit on certification we're gonna end up sitting on certification probably 10 to 14 days longer than we need.
Wow.
And that's very frustrating.
Yeah, for all of us. So, all right.
But, you know, that being said, by the Friday after election day, we've got about 99% of the ballots tabulated. And then we're doing the conditional voters and the provisional, and, you know, it's about another 1,200 to 2,000 ballots depending on the election. So a lot of the results are in, but not all the contests, especially close ones,
Can be determined until they're certified. Yeah.
Yeah, those certified.
Okay. Very good. Thanks again. I really appreciated the conversation and the presentation. Good luck with it. You're going to be busy, right? And there is a whole schedule of activities that the elections department provided the board in terms of we wanted to come by and look at various things and stuff. So they're very much in the outreach mode of providing information. If you have questions, visit the website. There's a lot of good updates on the website that have happened in, I'm going to say, the last 6 months, because obviously when you get closer to election, there's more and more out there. But if you have any questions, the door's open, ask the question, make a phone call, whatever, because our elections department is here to serve you and make sure our elections are fair and honest and we stay compliant to the state laws. That's the thing we all have to do, even though it may be a constitutional issue at some point. You have to stay compliant, right? All right, very good. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 5, communications from the supervisors. I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. Costco development team is still in discussions with our staff. We're expecting a resubmittal of the project, which will define exactly what their proposal is, including fueling islands. At this point, we don't know. There's been several inquiries made by various levels of the press seeking more information, and we can't say anything until we know they have a firm plan submitted. So that's the unfortunate part of it. But as we get information, we'll make sure everybody else gets it. Town and Country Village, the draft EIR update is proceeding. So they got the draft EIR, got comments. They're doing the update to that. And they're also preparing a detailed financing plan. The PFFP, and Public Facilities Finance Plan, is being reviewed. And public hearing dates for the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors are TBD. There's still, I know, a strong desire to try to get those both calendared before the end of this year, but that day by day is looking more and more difficult. So that's why I've got TBD. We don't know at this point. So we'll just have to keep you updated as we get more information. There's really nothing new on the AKT Community for Health and Independence. Again, we're expecting a formal application sometime in the near future. Eldorado's Generations at Green Valley Road, the Planning Commission hearing and the Board of Supervisors hearings are TBD, but my understanding, that's probably a 95% likelihood, maybe 100% at this point, that that's going to be extended into next calendar year. So as we get more definitive dates, we'll try to share with you what those are. So I think the bottom line of this is any of these projects is always subject to changes or requests for more information. And when that happens, the schedule always moves to the right, right? Nothing ever moves to the left. Accelerated with a few exceptions, maybe. The Business Park District 2, the Gateway Project, the parcel split appeal will be heard by the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. I've gone through a lot of the information on that. There's a number of different pieces of information that are out on Registrar, which is the tool the county uses to document all of the submittals. So staff's presentation, the staff report, public comment, there's a lot of it on this one. And I think when I looked at it, there was like 52 pages of public comment related things that are there. So it's a very, very busy activity, and a lot of people are paying attention to it. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. The interim community objective design standards. We had a joint workshop with the Planning Commission. That was completed, and we had several recommendations that have been provided to staff. So that's intended to come back within probably the 30 days for another review as a refinement. But I thought it was a very constructive discussion, and there were some good comments made. And so it's going to obviously improve the document when it's all ready for final review and approval. And then the Bass Lake Apartments appeal that was submitted to the Board of Supervisors, the appeal was held unanimously on the 24th of September. And the net result is that the developer's got to go back and look at if he wants to propose, as he did originally, the whole parcel. And that gets into a lot of legal interpretation of what constitutes a wetland. And the way the state has written things, it's 1 square foot of wetland and you're not allowed to use SB 330 and other tools evidently without any real consideration of what if it's a very small piece? There's no 5%, there's no nothing. The way that the state wrote this, the way the legislators wrote it, it basically says no wetland. So we don't want to be the trial case and determine what no wetlands means. So our staff is still working with the proponents to try to figure out how you navigate through all that. And there will be more to come, but I'm not sure in what form it's going to come. So it could be in legal action, or it could be in a proposal, a resubmittal, whatever it is. So that one's also out there. And with that, that concludes the comments I had to provide. And I was hoping Supervisor Turnbull would be able to join us this evening and provide any additional information, but I guess he's not able to participate with us. So with that, are there any questions anybody has on those items or anything else that you've heard about that I should report on? Yes, Bill?
John, I'm sorry, anyway, regarding the Costco development.
Yes.
Is that ongoing, despite their?
Yes. It's just we don't have the details. But what they told us is they want to make sure everything is solid with respect to primarily the traffic circulation modeling. And so our DOT is working with their traffic consultants to make sure all the details are worked out such that when it gets presented in the format that it is, that there will be not be any major unknowns related to how that traffic circulation should work. Because there's been a lot of concern with what happens on Silver Valley Parkway, what happens on Clarksville Crossing, the interchange near the school. There's a lot of things there that have to be considered. So they wanted to make sure that everything was locked tight in that analysis and then come forward with it, is what I understand is part of the hesitation. They want to know they've got a yes from DOT before they submit their plans, because there's no point in recirculating things, redoing it, if you don't reach agreement. So they're trying to get to that concurrence phase. Yes, this is compliant, it qualifies, it satisfies all the requirements we have, and then they can move forward. So it's in that final, the devil's in the detail aspect of things. So they're working some very detailed considerations right now to try to make sure all that works. If you remember, originally there was an issue with wanting to have entrance on the eastern portion of the property as an interchange, a lighted interchange. DOT was saying, no, it can be a right in and right out, but we're not going to put an interchange there. It would stack up to Highway 50. All of those things I think are being revisited. I don't think the interchange is going to be there, but they're focusing more, I think, on flow down closer to where the Country Club Drive connection will ultimately come in. So we'll just have to wait and see what it is.
Very well said, John.
Conjecture, I don't know, but all right, very good. All right, with that being complete, let's move on to our leadership team progress reports. And we always give a nod to our law enforcement and fire service. And I know our CHP representative, Andrew Brown, is here. So Officer Brown, can you share some of your recent statistics and things that have happened in El Dorado Hills, even though it's not pleasant to talk about?
Oh.
Now, well, there's a couple of them with involving kids that you just shake your head and go, oh my gosh.
I kind of find it fun, but I'm so I have myself, I'm Officer Andrew Brown with the California Highway Patrol. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Placerville area, which covers El Dorado Hills and the entirety of the western slope of El Dorado County, except for the city posted stamp of Placerville. So we deal with quite a bit of El Dorado County and its roads. Kind of see if I can share my screen here. I got a little bit of visual, so this is available for people online, and then also our audience here in the room. I also have Sergeant Croxton here. He's my direct supervisor, works well with me, conducting public education and getting out there in the public, and just an extra arm of the commander, so appreciate him coming in and helping out with this presentation. So e-bikes and e-scooters, we've had it's massive rise in popularity. It is not a new tech at all. These are not new laws that we're going to talk about, and I'll talk about that in a second, in a couple slides. But they are becoming smaller, lighter, and cheaper. The advent of the new batteries that we have and the new electronic, cheap electronics make these very available for everyone in this socioeconomic range. And then also there's a big push statewide from Caltrans Department of Transportation and our agency head for a multimodal emphasis in transportation projects. These things are looked at as a very affordable and very achievable transportation mode for the state of California. So we're aiming for safety and education. We got pictures of people in helmets, and we want to reduce accidents and injuries. So let's talk about data and stats and what we're talking about. We're talking about electronic mobility devices, or maybe not, maybe gasoline powered. But these right here, these are electronic assist bicycles. These are some of the most common things that you'll see out there that are electronic that you would have no idea that they are. And they're very popular. They're very cool. I think it's gonna, or it should, get most people out there and cycling again if you can't or you weren't before. This is a booming industry right now. Every car maker, not every, but most car makers and mainline motorcycle manufacturers is either building one of these, sponsors the build of one of these, or sells one of these direct. They're very popular. Every single bike maker out there makes one. Every single car makers are starting to make these again as well. So they're very, very popular. They're money makers, and they're really cool. Get out there and explore your neighborhood as they become a tourist in your own town again. So they have 3 classes. So by the law in the state of California, they must have fully operable pedals. And the electric motor that assists you in the pedaling or the mobility of that can't be in excess of 750 watt motor. We have class 1, and I broke it down very simply. Class 1 and class 3 assist you with pedaling and stops assisting at 20 and 28 miles an hour, respectively. Class C, you have to be 16 years old. Class 2, the motor may exclusively propel the bicycle, but only up to 20 miles an hour, and it can assist as well up to 20 miles an hour, and it will cease assisting after that. Bicycle helmets are always required if you're under 18, and so I'll send this to you, Cindy, if you want. Yeah, not a problem. And then e-scooters, motorized scooters. So all these vehicles are defined in the California Vehicle Code. So 407.5 defines what a motorized scooter. So now we're moving away from the bicycles. We're talking about 2-wheeled scooters, like a deck you stand on with handlebars. It kind of goes on and on, but it's a 2-wheeled device that has handlebars, and it can have a seat or a saddle. And if it does have the seat or saddle, it can have like 2 pads that you could stand on, respectively. It's kind of a broader definition, and it can also have a gasoline powered engine if it's not electric as well. Goes on and on. So if you really want to get into it, you can Google that vehicle code section. But we all kind of know what an electric scooter looks like, or a gasoline powered scooter may look like. There's a little bit more of that vehicle code as well, but it's very detailed. This is what we're talking about for those visual learners in the room and online. E-scooters, so it can have a deck to stand on, it has that handlebars, and it also can have a seat or a saddle, just like that. So that's most common of the kind of things that we're seeing out there. So e-scooters and motorized scooters. This vehicle code section 21235 says what you cannot do on an e-scooter. So it cannot be, it has to have good brakes, cannot go on a highway with a speed limit in excess of 25 miles per hour unless, and it goes on and on. There's special, I think we have a local legislator in this room that, if there's certain classifications for the county, which there's not at this time, but that I'm aware of, but essentially face value cannot be on a road that has a speed limit in excess of 25. You have to wear a helmet if you're under 18. You have to have, and this is the big kicker, you have to have a valid driver license or an instruction permit. Motorized scooter cannot be operated with any passengers. And these are what you cannot do.
You have to have a driver's license to operate a motorized scooter?
That's right. So a vehicle type, a vehicle that looks like that.
So all these 4-year-olds, 12-year-olds, I see on the street.
Yeah, and I can get to a little bit of history of
If
that.
they're not pushing it, if it's motorized, yeah, they have to have a driver's license.
And you cannot carry a package or a bundle. And this applies to bicycles too. You cannot carry something that makes it so that you can't keep at least one hand on the handlebars. You cannot ride up on a sidewalk. Um, we kind of know that.
That never happens.
You, the handlebars can't be above your head. You cannot leave it lying on a sidewalk where it's going to block people's path, or in another location, even if it's not laying down on the side, to block people's paths. And then you can't hook it up to another vehicle or tow another vehicle with it. Okay, that makes sense, right? Or another skateboard or something like that. Back in the 2 pages prior, it talks about class 1 or class 4 bikeway. What is that? I think this photo I snipped is, the text is too small, but the top left where it has the bikeway is completely separate from the roadway. We can look down this hill and we can see one. It's right there. That is a class 1 bikeway. Class 2 is from to straight down. It's not read like a book. It's just straight down from class 1 is the bottom left. That's a class 2. That's our normal bike lane that we would understand. Class 3 is top right. Those are bike routes or bicycle boulevards. And you'll see sharrows. That's what those official names of those things are, with the bicycle and the 2 chevrons. Those are called sharrows. And then class 4 is bottom right, separated with a little bit of a buffer. You can see some examples. There's some local examples over at Folsom. They have a couple of them, separated bikeways. I think there's definitely some grant funding flowing to the county for something like that. Maybe not that exactly, but this is very, very popular in the state of California. This is what's getting funded. This is what roadway improvements involve a lot of this. History. So you mentioned, I never knew this. Well, this was the law. They passed this law regulating these scooters back in their Senate session or legislative session, 1999-2000. Senate Bill 411 introduced it. Got amended in 2003, 2004. That removed the definition of making it a toy. Didn't apply. A toy is something that can be used for a child's enjoyment. So therefore, if a child was riding it, it was considered a toy. That's been removed. It doesn't matter who's riding it. And then 2017, 2018 added additional information about where to park it and things like that. Okay. But like you said, are these things new? No, they're not. This is 1916, so they utilized the front wheel drive just like they are today, folding handlebar stock just like they are today. They use them for postal delivery. They're at the right side. So it's not really the newest thing. And then modern day, this is the OG. This is the GoPed, early mid-90s. These things were very, very popular, spurred the definition and being introduced into the vehicle. This is a GoPed. So now we're going to move. Any questions about scooters? I motored right on through that. But operation on private property only. So we're talking about pocket bikes and mini motorcycles. They're 2-wheeled, motorized. They could be electric or they could be gasoline. A cedar saddle, not designed for or manufactured for highway use. Well, what's that mean, Officer Brown? That means it must have the applicable federal motor vehicle safety standards articulated in Title 49 of the Federal Code of Regulations, and it's equipped with those things. So let's talk about some mini bikes or pocket bikes. So that there on the left clearly has no headlights, tail lights, doesn't have probably the best brakes. Who knows what emissions it has. Same thing with that Coleman or some would call them pit bikes. They're on the right. They're not meant for any roadway use. They have no federal standards at all. They're no reflectors, no nothing. On the left, that's something you could buy at Walmart or Amazon.com today. Be delivered on Prime tomorrow. And same thing with the one on the right. So these are plug-in, electric-powered, battery-powered pocket bikes, which are not designed for any on-highway usage at all. They don't have VINs. They don't have the safety things that you would expect. There is a headlight on that one on the right, but there's no other federal vehicle designation or things like that. No safety standards that, at least that I'm aware of, that it's gone through. So let's talk about some local enforcement. So this is a local bike corral. You can see there's everything we've talked about in that bike corral. There's pocket bikes, there's e-scooters, there's regular bicycles, there's e-bicycles. So it's an issue that we need to go after locally. And I want to bring up Sergeant Croxton if he wants to talk about kind of what we're doing locally for some enforcement / education.
Thank you, Officer Brown. Thanks again for having us. Adam Croxton, Sergeant at the Placerville office. I want to touch on the enforcement aspect of this because just like you were shocked to hear this information, mainly about driver's license requirements, we need to formulate a plan on how we're going to address that. So the laws, confusing. There's a lot to them. I won't pass out a test to take based on what Andrew covered here tonight, but they're confusing. And from a parent standpoint, there could be a lot of lack of knowledge that's associated with that. So we've roundtabled this a lot, and we had a lot of options on how we could address that. But what we think is the best way to address that was education, which we do with just about every component of our job. Education. So we're in talks with the districts and the superintendents of schools to see how we can push that education component out first prior to taking enforcement action upon that. It doesn't preclude our officers from going out and enforcing the vehicle code. We can't make that carte blanche, directive out to our officers doing their best every day. We can't say turn a blind eye to this, so they absolutely can't address it, but it's going to be coupled with that education component. So stage 1, education. Stage 2, probably some more education. Stage 3, yeah, probably some more education. But we're weeding out hopefully some families along the way, really getting the message out and that education out, that component to it. But eventually, yeah, there'll probably be some enforcement action taken by the California Highway Patrol. What that looks like could be in the form of a ticket going out to parents. It could be little Johnny rode his scooter to school today. Now we're getting a phone call from the school saying little Johnny rode the scooter to school. We contacted his parents and told them they need to come pick up the scooter because we have a policy now, and this is not current, but maybe in the future, we have a policy that we don't allow those scooters on campus. And how convenient when little Johnny's parents come to pick up the scooter, Officer Brown's there to get some more education. So that's kind of the approach we're taking. We think that that's probably the best way to get that information out. And with full support of the school system, I think that will happen. So any questions on any of that? It's at the end of the day, the laws are confusing. These things are fun as heck. If anybody's been on one of these scooters or these e-bikes, they're a blast. At the end of the day, they're hurting our kids, and they're also hurting the public. There's been a sharp rise in the crashes that we're taking involving these scooters. So there's good reasons why lawmakers got together and made these laws. It's just up to us now on how we're going to address the issue. So, yes, ma'am.
I live in El Dorado. I really hope they fix because these kids are dangerous. I've almost hit several of them. So as much as I appreciate you're saying we're going to try to get this information out, I can't imagine why schools would be accommodating.
Yeah, and to answer that, you're so right. I will say it's very new. This is, scooters aren't brand new. They didn't just get released last week, but by the time we're getting our statistics filtered down to us, we're now seeing this is an issue we need to address full force. And all of the schools I've talked to and all the different districts I've had those conversations with, 100% support it because obviously their highest priority is make sure the kiddos are safe as well. But again, it's not just the kiddos. You could be walking your dog on the sidewalk and get taken out of the kneecap by yeah, and that's why that age requirement's in there.
And that's a scary picture. Because that's all illegal.
Not all.
Not all. There's a few in there that, yeah. We don't know who rode them to school, but we probably have a pretty good guess who rode them to school, right? Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Officer, you mentioned education. Almost sounds like real estate, location, right? My concern is of the pocket bikes that I'm seeing in our neighborhood and schools. And I get to drive past 3 schools, which is entertaining sometimes. They're riding pretty quick, but they don't obey the rules of the road. And that makes somebody very unpredictable. When you do education, how are you educating students on safety or rules of the road so it's a little bit safer for the rider, the pedestrian, and those that are in an automobile?
It's a great question. A lot of that education I talk about is going to come down from the parental level. So in the first place, if they're not supposed to be on the road, hopefully that gets addressed by the parents. Are there some parents out there that may still allow their child to, ride these bikes and scooters illegally? Possibly, and we'll address that when it's brought to our attention. Can we do more education to the kids in schools? Absolutely. That's great ideas. We do a number of things. We do bike rodeos, which we'll go out there and we'll set up cones and courses, trying to build their skill levels. But then we hit again on the safety equipment component of that as well. Make sure that they are obeying the laws, they're wearing helmets, things like that. So it's kind of a dual attack, I think, from the parental level, but then also in schools and educating the kids as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say from the fire side, 100% support what you're doing. I know last month I would just happen to be working one random day as a battalion chief here in town, and we had 2 teenagers, young teenagers, with just horrible brain injuries from crashing on these things. So definitely think it's a good thing that you're doing, and I think your approach is logical to me. But yeah, it's super dangerous, and it's hard to let that parent know what it looks like when that kid's laying there in the street, and the odds of their long-term future being compromised by a brain injury. You never know how it's going to work out. It might be okay, it may not. So I think what you're doing is great. I think if
Appreciate
we can support
that.
you,
Yeah,
let
and
us know.
I talk about the crashes on the rise. Those are the crashes we know about. How many other crashes are there that are solo, meaning not involving another car, where little Johnny went down on the sidewalk or in the road and got, transported either by fire or self-transported by the family. And we weren't looped into that. So we're well aware that there could be higher numbers that we don't even know about yet that we need to consider. Correct. Yes.
Do you have something that we could insert into our HOA?
Ooh, I'm sure we could get probably something.
Yeah, so I'm gonna refer you to some website here, but I have a couple of slide here that's gonna be good info for y'all. I just had a few more slides. So these are motorcycles.
Yeah.
All right, we all know those are motorcycles. So here's a really good resource. So the California Highway Patrol, per Assembly Bill 1946, a couple of years ago, was mandated to develop and implement a training program for electronic bicycle safety and training. That is currently available. So you go to chp.ca.gov, and it's like the second banner right there, right on our face page. You can click that. You can roll directly into the training. At the end of it, actually prints you off a certificate. Or if you'd like to, you can print the certificate. So that gives you some information for e-bikes or bicycles in general. Really cool stuff. I think for e-bikes as we get older, it's like we may have stopped riding our bicycles, and now these e-bikes give us an opportunity to really get back into it, and we may have forgotten what we were doing back then, or maybe we were kids, we never did the right thing in the first place. I don't know. So there's some really good information in there. It really gets in depth. We've had a couple of partnerships that came in and helped us develop the training. It's really cool. It's really in depth. But if you work at a workplace that has online training, you'll be like, oh, this feels familiar. Yeah. No, it's pretty good. And then motorcycles and similar vehicles. So if you go to our website, chp.ca.gov, on the top right, there's a search box. You can see that right there. If you type in motorcycles or motorcycles and similar vehicles, just like that, that heading will be one of the search results where it says motorcycles and similar vehicles. And then you can go through the whole thing, copy and paste, steal those pictures, put them in your newsletter. And it has all the rules and things like that for scooters right there in plain text and also some photos. So take those, use them, and then use that information and tailor it to your appropriate audience. Make it yours. Any other questions?
Jump in line. Thank you, as always. And I know Officer Brown's been very consistent with this message.
Yep.
In fact, when people ask, I don't like next door, but people ask, the first thing I do is like, well, you should, here's a community council meeting where Officer Brown presented this information. Go watch it. It starts here, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Sorry.
That's
But,
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
But
Yeah.
it is important because what I've observed is that it's not just kids going, well, no, I'm okay to ride. It really is a parent. And even when you tell them it's not legal, they, no, you're wrong. It's like, you know, so educating the kids that hopefully you're evangelizing the kids to bring that message to their parents that no, mom, dad, you are wrong. It's this. We talk to whoever. So it's just important. We share this widely in our nonprofit. We share it whenever you make a presentation and make sure people see it. So it's just an important message, and consistency is the key, right? A lot of laws are goofy, but we got to know what they are and got to be compliant with them.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to take too much effort. Anecdotally, I've heard it was, say we had some stops made for Silva Valley, and like the next day it was like, oh, it was kind of really, there was like no kids road. So, but it's going to trickle back. It's whack-a-mole. So we'll get on it.
So contact phone number, are we still using the on-duty? Sorry, if somebody sees a kid riding without a helmet on the sidewalk, they're concerned with their health and safety,
Sure.
what number do they call?
They can call our office and we can kind of focus enforcement at the moment. We can do a traffic complaint, filter that out through to our field officers. 530-748-2450. 530-748-2450. If it's a non-emergency thing, but it's an emergent issue, like it's happening right now in front of me, you can call our non-emergency line at our dispatch, like a parking complaint or something like that. 916-861-1300. 916-861-1300. And then always for reckless driving, things that are going to be hazardous to property and or injury or death, like DUI driver that you're possibly behind, and reckless driving, things like that. You can always call 911 to report that, and we'll see if we can get out there.
I think Raylene had a question. Yeah.
No, I haven't. Do you have a contact? I'm going to give you my card. All right.
Very good. Yeah. Yes. See that? I don't see it. Where's the hand up? I see.
I can end it.
It's off on the side of my screen. My screen doesn't go far. Linda Campbell, I think you have the floor.
Hey everyone, this is Linda Campbell. Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, but I'm still here. On this topic, I was here last school year when Officer Brown made the presentation. And now we're 2 months for some schools into the current school year. So definitely we still see kids whizzing around the parking lot. So I guess in regards to the education part of it, it is hopefully, as well as the kids, the schools are involved with sending communications out to parents. I mean, there's information that goes out all the time. And maybe you decide you get to a point where you say, you know, we've given you, 50 warnings now, and maybe just set a target date and say, hey, you know what, on this date for this school, we're gonna hit enforcement, right? And you could still let them know in advance. They may or may not show up again the next day, but at least they're having something to work towards and make sure that it's well known that you can enforce it and that you will, and ultimately that it is for their safety and the safety of everyone around, where we have kids not obeying traffic laws because they don't know the traffic laws, things like that. So anyways, just a little bit of encouragement, something to think about, which you probably already have, but there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
That's great, Linda. Thank you very much. And thanks for sharing the concern. I think it's a concern we all share. While I like the idea of putting a date into place where, potentially we could put communication out saying we're going to start enforcing on this date. We technically can start enforcing right now. It is in the California Vehicle Code. These Officer Brown referenced these laws. They're enforceable as of right now. So we don't need to put a date. It's already there. We're just hoping to really hit this educational component in conjunction with that, trying to get the message out first before we just start heading up and down El Dorado Hills Boulevard, citing as many kids as we can. I think that's a very technical fix that won't help solve the overall issue of keeping the kids safe. So we will be, rest assured, there will be an enforcement component to this, probably in the near future.
Good. Any final go backs? Anybody? Seeing none, one, pardon?
Oh, did you want to?
Well, the question is, the car that came off Silver Valley Parkway and went into the back of the play structure evidently, did you want to make any comments on the accident and what the follow-up might have been for that?
This is just one of those unfortunate things for the crash. I haven't looked at its completion, so I'm not sure if I can speak to the details of it. But minor injuries, I believe, out of that. Yeah, no children were out. As far as I know, no children were out in the back, so it was not that big of an incident, or could have been what it could have been. So we're just thankful that it wasn't that. But otherwise, we just want to remind people, watch their speed, eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, mind on the drive, and you'll get there 99% of the time.
And Silver Valley Parkway is in particular one of those areas you have to be extra cautious because there's 3 schools basically, right, that are all in line there. And if you include Oak Ridge, there's 4. So it depends on which side of the street you're looking at.
Yeah.
But it is a highly congested area in the morning with different school start times and everything else. You think you've gotten past one area of high concentration of movement, and then you get to another one. So always be attentive, particularly on Silver Valley Parkway. It's one of the, I think, the most difficult places to navigate safely on a daily basis, because you also have the high school students pulling in and parking and pulling out, and because there's not adequate parking space, we could go on and on and on, but be attentive, be vigilant, watch what's going on around you. That's the best we can suggest. So
Appreciate that. And last meeting we talked about, we have a motor now, so we have that extra asset, and he's been
Yes.
assigned to this area.
Yes.
And I'm imagining everyone's seen him at some point, hopefully.
I think it was actually
He's a
in the
motorcycle.
photograph.
Yeah.
There was a photograph put on
There you
next
go.
door. It looks like, the motorcycle was
He's out there.
there.
He can maneuver those tight spaces like Supervisor's referencing a lot easier than our cars can. So he's a great resource. We're really pleased to have him.
Been out there quite a bit. With a lot of schools enforcement the last few weeks, so hopefully you've noticed.
Yes. All right, very good. Well, Sergeant Croxton and Officer Brown, thank you very much for your presentation tonight and sharing your insights and answering our questions. So really appreciate it. Okay, the rest of the Safe and Healthy Communities report.
Yep. No, Michael Info again. I'll make it relatively quick. That was a great presentation. I appreciated that. Anybody notice it's been really hot? So I think we're at 50 days over 100, which is almost double the normal. So it's definitely been a hot year. It's definitely increased the wildfire risk. We expect risk to continue through the month of October until we get some substantial rain. I know that we met with the National Weather Service recently, and they're predicting a La Nina type event starting up here very shortly, which is typically drier through the winter. So 7 out of 10 of the La Nina years that they've studied and presented to us, 7 of the 10 were drier than typical. So take that as you may. It's interesting with the Weather Service because there's always that little asterisk of, well, maybe that won't happen. But the general thought is it's going to be a drier winter, so we're prepared for that. Typically, when we look at our fire history, coming out of La Nina years is when we've had the bigger fire seasons because it's been drier. So back in 2020, 4.3 million acres burned. 2021, it was 2.5 million acres. Then we had some wet weather patterns. We dropped those numbers down. And so we'll see what happens this year. But if the heat continues and we don't get a lot of rain this winter, then we'll be looking at most likely a challenging summer next summer coming up. So we're paying attention to that and just kind of monitoring it. Other than that, the only other major news is October is Nationally Fire Prevention Month across the nation. And so we're out in the schools right now and visiting the kids and doing fire safety education and poster contests. And those are really good and really valuable. You talk about the issues of connecting, and that's where you want to start. And we try and connect with kids in terms of fire education when they're young and little, and hopefully that carries forward through the rest of their lives. So that's our activity right now, and I'm open to any questions if you have them.
Can you share a little bit more information about the two teenagers, roughly their
Yeah.
age and what they were writing on? Not a lot
No,
of
no, no,
detail.
yeah, no,
but-
I happened to be working that day. We were a little short, so I was staffing the battalion role. And I think we had one young teenager on a e-scooter with no helmet on that ended up going down with substantial injuries. And then later that day, we had, I want to say it was some kind of a bike. It was an E-type bike. And then the individual did have a helmet on, but the impact was so great on the speeds that were being traveled that it didn't prevent them from having challenges. So again, just two random one day, they both happen to happen on the same day to our same engine crew. And one of the things for us is those are pretty traumatic calls for the firefighters because we all have kids and families. And so we had the same engine crew, the same ambulance crew on both those calls. They had just gotten back from the trauma center and the second one came shortly thereafter. So just a really weird night. But as you've all seen, as we've seen, they're flying through town and you don't see them when you look and it's clear, and then all of a sudden a kid pops out in front of your car. There's been a lot of that. And so I'm really pleased that our partners in the CHP are going to take action on that.
Very good. And I don't think we have a sheriff's report this evening, so we're still trying to get that reestablished. I can look. Email or text? Okay, so I'm going to look that up while we're continuing here because I don't see anybody ready to report. So with that, let's cover these very quickly and let's start. We'll start over here and we'll go through the Youth Commission report. So.
Okay, hi, I'm Sophia. I'm a member of the Youth Commission. So a little update on Oak Ridge. Today was the homecoming parade, so it was a bit of traffic around Oak Ridge because there's a parade. All of the student body, each grade level has a float, and some of the other sports participate. It's really great for younger kids because we hand out some treats and stuff, and it's just really nice to see the community and have them see like what we do as ASB at Oak Ridge. And then the dance is this Saturday, and the football game is this Friday. So just really looking forward to that. I think a lot of the students are really looking forward to that. Plus all the spirit days that we have this week, just really fostering a good community at Oak Ridge. And then a few weeks ago, we had a mountain lion threat on campus that was addressed by the sheriff's office. And then I think a week before that, we had unfortunately, a school shooting threat that was also handled pretty quickly by the sheriff's office and our Oak Ridge administration. At Youth Commission, we have 6 new commissioners, so about exactly half is new to the commission, which is amazing. Lots of underclassmen, so it's great to see younger students getting involved in the Youth Commission. Our peer advocacy program is now in 8 different high schools across the county, which is amazing. And we're really aiming for classes next year to really implement that program to help as many people as possible. The Youth Commission is really looking at data from surveys that determine youth needs. At our meeting last week, we really identified some big issues as vaping, negative school culture, and mental health issues still. And we're really aiming to try to focus on those, spread awareness this year. And we're also looking to see if we could have a one-day training for all peer advocates to come together around the county to work together and learn. And we're going to try to implement that within the next year as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's jump over here to David and then we'll work back this way.
We're looking forward to the October 15th meeting of the Board of Supervisors when the committee will officially be appointed for the Strategic Economic Enhancement Committee. And then we will get work on our strategic plan to share with the entire county and present before the Board of Supervisors sometime in 2025.
John, APAC.
There we go. I wanted to mention too, as we've been talking about the e-bikes and the traumatic brain injuries, that the fire department has a very good video produced with the Highway Patrol and with the Sheriff's Department. I believe it's Kyle's story. If you have an opportunity, I don't want to say scared straight, or there's a component of that, but it's really informative. So if you have an opportunity, you have kids, you have grandkids, there's an opportunity to look at that and just learn a little more. So APAC, we're meeting here in 2 days. I'm going to spend the night.
All right.
We're back in this room on the Wednesday the 9th, 6:30 p.m. We don't have a guest speaker, but we will possibly have any sort of update that's prepared by our standing transportation and environmental subcommittees, if they have everything ready. And what I like to do with that is those volunteers work all the time and nobody ever sees them until they have a formal presentation to make. And so we don't expect a work product from them every month when we have a meeting, but we do like to have probably an opportunity if they have something to share. So that'll be up first. And then we have project review schedules for the 4 projects that we've submitted comments on in draft environmental impact reports this year from the summer: Village of Marble Valley, Lime Rock Valley, Generations at Green Valley, Town and Country Village, El Dorado. So spoiler alert, I have had some confirmation today. So if you're not going to be at the meeting, all those projects are 2025 at this point. So don't share that news too widely, but we want to share that with the community on Wednesday night. And then we have some project status updates that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the appeal being upheld for the Bass Lake Family Apartments. What happens tomorrow with the Carson Creek R&D project? That appeal is going to be at the Board of Supervisors. I did have a brief status update on Costco. It's not inconsistent with anything Supervisor Heidel has shared. Talked to the principal at Oak Ridge today, and I will give a spoiler alert on this. They anticipate the traffic improvement and circulation project that's going on at the high school end of October. Keep your fingers crossed, because it was supposed to be, before the kids got back to school. We had a long talk about that. So, and then we'll also have a little bit of an update about what's going to happen tonight as you leave, depending on the time, at 7 o'clock. The Saratoga Way improvement status that's going on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. As you leave tonight, they're supposed to be starting at 7 p.m. They'll work through 5 a.m. 1 lane in each direction at all times minimum, but be aware of that. And then there's a project at the Planning Commission on Thursday, the Bowman telecommunications facility. And it's essentially a cell phone tower or a communications tower. And sometimes they're controversial and sometimes they're not. And in this, right now, we've had so much bandwidth applied to these big projects that we really did not get in front of this project. I've been looking to see if anybody in the community had any concerns about it. And I think only one person has registered really any concern. But what's unique about this telecommunications facility is that, we've all seen the monopines, right? The fake Christmas trees that are disguised cell phone towers. A little different approach with this one. They want to disguise it as a water tower, like ye old water tower, like railroad days. It is on the Bowman's facility with the CSD. The initial plan I saw had the CSD logo emblazoned across that. That was a problem. But I've talked to the planner at the county. That's not going to happen. So, but they are going to be at the Planning Commission to have it. The one concern I think that most people that I've talked to when they ask about it, it's 110 feet tall. And it's on a hill in the Bowman's facility. So it will be rather prominent from the boulevard, from both directions, from Wilson, from parts of Ridgeview, I guess, as you're driving along. So, but it is a unique solution to something that's, nobody likes the blight of the monopine or just even a cell phone tower. So hopefully the Planning Commission has the opportunity to take a look at that and review it. And the last two things we'll do is that we'll be talking about the opportunity for new voting members for APAC that have contributed projects this year, and for preparing for our 2025 officer elections. It'd be great if somebody would like to be the chair. I'm just saying. But pointing. It's your building too, so you could, But the volunteers who help with us, we want to have an opportunity for them to sort of officially become part of the process of when we review projects, not just what they're contributing, but to provide a vote of support for the conclusions our volunteers find. So 6:30, less than 2 hours. How? Okay, well, supervisors.
That's a
like-
goal. It's never a commitment,
If
right?
there are two supervisors here, it could go longer, so
Oh.
we'll leave it at that.
So
But,
supervisors, okay.
sometimes, but no, we appreciate the fact that the supervisors attend and want to keep engaged with what we're reviewing. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody here on Wednesday night or virtually on.
You get a night off and then come back Wednesday, right? So that's good. Yeah. All right. Thank you, John. Let's go to our community information and outreach.
There's a lot going on this month. Every Sunday, year-round now, is still the El Dorado Hills Farmers Market from 9 to 1. That's at El Dorado Hills Town Center behind the Nibblers and the Trek Bicycle. On October 9th, there's a barbecue at the El Dorado Hills CSD Dog Park. It's the last park party of the year. So you bring your leashed dog and enjoy free music and food and canine-oriented activities. So, and they're also going to have some local dog-themed businesses there. On October 10th, they continue with the Theater Plaza Thursday live music. That's the El Dorado Hills Town Center. That's in the Theater Plaza area where the movie theater is. And that's from 6:30 to 8:30. October 11th, there's an Oktoberfest luncheon. That's for seniors. It's from 11 to 1 p.m. at the El Dorado Hills CSD gym. They're going to have an Oktoberfest themed lunch, and they're going to have entertainment and dancing and a raffle. And you'll need to register for that. And it's $7 a person. You can either register at the Moni Gilmore Center, or you can call 916-614-3200 for that event. October 12th and 13th, the Hands for Hope, they're having their annual fall festival. It'll be from 11 to 4 at the El Dorado Hills Town Center Amphitheater. They're gonna have games, pumpkin decorating, tractor hay rides, obstacle horses. And so all the proceeds from that event for that weekend benefit the Hands for Hope organization. October 17th, there's going to be a Pink Out El Dorado Hills awareness event from 6:30 to 8:30, again at the El Dorado Hills Town Center in the Theater Plaza area. They will have live music and a scavenger hunt. October 19th is the second annual El Dorado Hills Fine Arts Festival, and that will be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the El Dorado Hills Library. They will have artists from the El Dorado Hills Arts Association, Folsom Arts Association, and the Placerville Arts Association. And they're going to have a lot of art to look at and also for sale at the community room in the library and also in the parking lot. And on the same day, October 19th, there's going to be a pumpkin splash patch from 1 to 3 p.m. at the El Dorado Hills CSD pool. Kids from 1 to 12 can come wear their swimsuits, and they're going to have a holiday hunt in the pool. They're going to jump in the heated pool and grab pumpkins and decorate it, and they get to take it home. And they also let them swim there. So you will have to, it's $18 a person, and that includes a pumpkin, the decorating supplies, and a special trick-or-treat goodie bag that we're giving them too. So sign up at the El Dorado Hills CSD. The 20th of October, there's going to be a yoga in the park at 9 a.m. at Promontory Park. It's family friendly, just an introduction to yoga and flows, and it's free with a partnership with Yoga 6. October, I'm almost done, there's a lot. October 23rd, there's a senior resource fair from 10 to noon at the El Dorado Hills CSD gym. There's going to be a variety of vendors providing services, amenities, and tools for seniors. They'll have snacks, and they're going to have a raffle at that as well. And October 25th is the Trunk or Treat Scarecrow Contest from 4:30 to 7 at the El Dorado Hills CSD parking lot. They're going to have goodies and decorated trunks, and the trunk or treat. The people come in their cars, they decorate the trunks, and then they hand out treats for the kids. And there's also going to be the scarecrow contest where people you can vote for your favorite scarecrow. And they'll have music and food trucks at that event. And on Halloween, there's going to be the annual Halloween Spooktacular from 3 to 6 p.m. at the El Dorado Hills Town Center businesses. They're going to have the trick or treating from 3 to 6. And then there's going to be a costume contest starting at 5. And the different contest categories include cutest, scariest, hero or villain, most creative, and a best family or group. And then finally, also on Halloween, there's going to be a senior Halloween party at 1 o'clock at the Gilmore Senior Center. Costumes are encouraged, entertainment and snacks are provided. So there's a lot to do. in
Yeah,
October.
sounds like it. Busy harvest season, right?
Yes.
It's only 31 days.
I know. What
know.
are you gonna do? Something to do every day. So, I'm only gonna go cover back one of these things that we kind of skipped over, public infrastructure. As if you haven't been following the Board of Supervisors meetings, it's been recognized for some time that the Spring Street facility really needs to be totally replaced. But we don't have the capital replacement funding to do that. So we're continually looking at where we're gonna come up with the funding, how are we gonna make changes there? And that's where our senior, club is located is at the Spring Street facility for the Placerville area seniors. So that facility has had a lot of years of wear and tear. It also houses other county offices, and so it's a pretty big project to find a new facility, a new location to place that. But that's on the to-do list, and it's one of those things that's been backlogged several times. But we just need to keep applying for grants and try to get that money to do things. So that's the bottom line on that one. So I'm going to move quickly. Any go backs by anybody?
I
Yeah.
apologize, I don't belabor it,
That's
but
okay.
I missed one thing that's very important. I think a lot of the community would enjoy. Here on the 16th, there's a homeowners insurance panel
Yes.
discussion, and I apologize. I should have mentioned this earlier. I think this would be really worth your time and effort. Fire insurance in California has been a problem. There's been so many people either canceled or your rates have gone way up. But it's a panel discussion sponsored by the Fire Safe Council. Looking at it, they've got a representative from the California Fair Plan, California Department of Insurance, and some local insurance brokers. So they're going to be available for a panel type discussion to talk about fire insurance. So if you know anybody interested in that, please share that message. It is 6:30 p.m. here on October 16th.
I think we put that on all our social media,
Yeah.
right? So the word has been out there, but we just need to keep emphasizing as it comes closer and closer. So thank you for that. Any other go backs? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item 7. Next meeting is October 28th. Yes, another meeting in October because elections is the following week and we couldn't get this facility because they're preparing for elections, which is November 5th. So we decided rather than skip a meeting, we'll have probably a shortened agenda for October 28th. We want to keep the cycle going here. Just a reminder, November 5th, if you haven't voted by then, please turn in your ballot because it's very important that we all vote. And to represent our feelings about who our elected officials should be and what we should do with all these propositions. The ballot measures this time around are huge. And to try to understand them takes a long time. Don't wait till the last night to try to read through them. I've been collecting all kinds of advisories and other things because I haven't decided on half of them how I'm going to vote yet. And I tend to be more front end in terms of hearing things through CSAC, California Association of Counties, and other things in terms of ballot measures they're supporting. And so some of them I've made up my mind ahead of time, but for the average voter, it's difficult to read through them and understand what they're really talking about. And then where do you want to weigh in on it? So please take your time and try to do that, but vote. And then our guest speaker for next month, I'm going to invite somebody to speak about El Dorado Hills Incorporation based upon the meeting that we had up at Mohana's Ranch, where we talked about, it was bridging gaps.
Bridging divides.
Bridging divides. Bridge Meadows, Bridging Divides. Bridging Divides hosted a workshop, and they talked about a number of different things, what you would like to see El Dorado County become, and there was probably 50 or 60 people that was invited to a large group of people, and there was 50, 60 that actually showed up, of which I think probably about 15 were not El Dorado Hills residents, but they were interested enough to show up anyway, so that's fine. But based upon that, and one of the single things that came out of that we heard at every table is El Dorado Hills Incorporation is something we should consider, given knowing where the county is right now, what their financial means, giving the fact that we're having some very new improvements being made, economic development. One is Costco and one is Town and Country Village and a lot of other things that are happening. We're running an economic development summit discussion for El Dorado Hills initially sponsored by GSEC. Greater Sacramento Economic Council, and then the chamber. So things are starting to happen, and I think it's time for people to really look at what's going on. I got a text message today from a resident I've known for many, many years complaining that nobody's picked up the Christmas tree that was along the side of El Dorado Boulevard after reporting, and evidently there was 2 Christmas trees. DOT came out and picked up one, didn't get the other. So he's totally frustrated at trying to get the services out of the county. And the county is strapped. It is so large in terms of how many miles people have to travel to deliver services that it's extremely difficult with the staff that we can pay for, because the budgets are tight, to really cover those bases. But incorporation offers a different alternative. 5 elected people from our community. So guess what? We're all leaning on the city manager to get the same things done in El Dorado Hills as opposed to across the whole county. So there's different forms of government. You can either be a proponent or not a proponent, but I think it's time we discussed that in a little bit more detail and really looked at some pros and cons and got that dialogue started. So I haven't determined who it's going to be yet. I've got a couple of asks in, but I haven't heard back. So we will have a pretty good presentation there, hopefully. With that, we're adjourned. See, note the time. 1 hour and 40 minutes.